Yeah, I do. The biggest thing if you were at one of our practices last year or the year before, you saw that we had a lot of depth at wide receiver, and we lost, four dudes, and so that was the biggest thing is you look out there, and we got two guys, Romello and Jordan, that are back, but we're trying to replace a lot of experience in leadership right now. And so you can see the lack of that right now.
And can you talk about the role those two guys are going to play in, starting to get this group ready? You have Romello and Jordan.
Yes. So when you have a lot of depth and experience like we did the last couple years, we split time. If you had 80 plays, Jordan would have 40, and maybe Mucci or Keyshawn or Romello, whoever was subbing with him, would have 40, right? But going into the first game, unless one of those somebody appears that deserves half the reps, they're probably going to be getting 75% of the reps, as of right now, until somebody shows me something different. So, now they have to increase, they have to be in better shape, they have to be more reliable, they got to be tougher. And so, I put that challenge before them, before spring. And yesterday is when I saw them really accept that challenge and try to step their game up. But they know they got to do something different. They got to be better. As we say, as coaches saying, we got to chase the standard, and they got to do better.
What did you see yesterday that made you start thinking?
I saw guys hustling on run plays. That's the number one thing I kind of look at. I mean, every receiver's going to run hard when they know a ball might get thrown to them. But what are you doing when the ball is not, coming to you? And are you embracing what we teach about blocking? Am I my brother's keeper? And it also shows me when I see guys hustling on run plays, it shows you their level of care. Do you care enough? Right? I talk to my guys about that so much. You see, just in society, like, come on, man. Like, the level of care really shows up in your job, you know? On a side tangent, have you been to a restaurant lately? Or you've been to a fast food? Or you've been anywhere? And I mean, just, oh my gosh, like, come on, man. Let's care more, right? Do whatever job that you're doing in this world, you're representing, you got a name on your back, and you're representing your family. I don't care if you're freaking digging a ditch, you're holding that camera over there, you're replacing those snacks in that thing. Do it to the best of your ability, man, because that's your character, that's who you are, and I try to teach them that. Right? Let's get better, let's do that, care more.
When you talk about Romello and Jordan taking on these leadership roles, is that something you can coach into them, or is that something that's just born into the guys that they just have it or they don't?
Man, that's a great question. I believe leadership definitely can be taught, because first of all, leadership has been watered down in our world. You've always heard the phrase lead by example, which I think is an absolute myth. You don't lead by example. That's called doing your job, right? So if you come here and do the best job that you possibly can, did you help her do a better job? I don't know. Maybe you didn't. Now, if you're like on the side going, hey, you need to do this better, you need to do that better. Well, you just led and you helped her. So that's leadership. So if all you're doing is worrying about yourself, you're not a leader. You're just doing what you're supposed to do. And maybe you're doing it at a high level, and that's great. But leadership is going, I do my stuff, and then I look to the left, I look to my right. Am I bringing Dalen Singleton along with me, right? Am I bringing Jalen Cooper along with me? So, yes, I think it can be taught, because I think it's been taught wrong since they've been little.
You mentioned the two of them. What have you seen from those two guys as they've been thrown into the fire?
Yeah. Man, it's tough being a freshman, man. You come out here, and what's funny is that, like, when you're a really good, highly recruited receiver, most of the time in high school you don't get pressed, because the other team's like scared to death to get pressed, because it's probably going to be a touchdown, especially like if you're Dalen and you got that great speed. next thing you know, now he's running almost every single one of his routes against a dude standing up with long arms right in front of him like that. And so it's a completely different world than he's been exposed to for the last 4 years, right? So they got to get used to that. So it's the battle, it's tougher, it's mentally tougher. So here's what I've seen. Dalen Singleton can fly, he can run. So we can get him to where he can be useful in games with that speed. That's up to us to utilize that superpower that he has. Jalen Cooper is an extremely advanced for his age route runner. And so that has been, and I saw that when I offered him several years ago, that he was way above average for his age and route running, and his route mind is what I call it. So I'm very excited about him and his possibilities for this year.
So when you have veterans like Romello and Jordan, and then you've got these talented freshmen like Jalen and Dalen, how different is the teaching process for you?
Yes, so there's a lot of extra, not outside of the hours we're supposed to have due to NCAA rules. But they have to, like I said, they have to care more. So if they have any extra time, they can come up to the coach's office, whatever, or they need to go home and they need to write out the plays. Where Junior, Jake Bailey, those guys knew the offense. They didn't have to, that was so easy for them, and but these guys, they have to care more than I think they understand. And so that, to me, that's the job that me and Coach Jenkins have, is we got to get them to understand how to care more. And what do you want out of this? Tell them all the time, if you want to drive a Lamborghini, you can't pay a Honda Civic car payment. There's got to be some kind of sacrifice in another area, right? And so, you want to be great, you can't just put the hours in of somebody that already knows the offense. You got to put in more. And so teaching them that's the biggest teaching curve, is that.
You mentioned the guys that you lost. What did you think of their performance on Pro Day?
I loved it, man. I loved it. What was good to hear was listening to the coach Williams, who I know from the Saints. Good, he's a really good coach. And some of the things that he told me afterwards and all that stuff, it was really good to hear. That we're on the right track of what we coach here. You know what I'm saying? So that felt really good. I was proud of the boys. They looked fast. They looked very sudden. So yeah, I'm excited for those guys. I think if they'll get in camp somewhere, I don't know if they're going to get drafted, but if just get in camp, I think that what they've been taught, details, all of that stuff, I think they're going to do really good.
What do you hope to see from guys like Randy or Jamari, and guys who have been in the program for a couple of years now, and maybe now that some veterans are gone, might have an opportunity to maybe start showing you something?
Yeah, here's what I tell them, and I kind of punched him in the face today, not literally, guys, but it's like a moment. It's a moment, right, where and I said, listen, every single day is this football field out here is like being in the courtroom, and you are bringing evidence to the judge whether you deserve to play here or not every day. And that's your responsibility, right? My job is to get you prepared for that moment. But once the ball's snapped, dude, this is your shot, all right? And you guys know the landscape of college football now. Man, it's competitive, and there's money out there and all that stuff now. And dude, you got to bring it every day, or it's not going to be there for you, right? And so, and that's what I told him. So to answer your question, I expect a lot out of them. They've been here. They know if they're supposed to line up on the hash, then by God, go line up on the hash and show me that you care and you've been paying attention for the last 2 years, right? So every day is an opportunity to show toughness, to show that you care. And they're doing an all right job, right? But got to do better. They all got to do better. Right now, I'm not satisfied with where we're at the receiver position.
For a guy like Romello, came into last year thinking it was going to be his last year.
Yes.
Things happen. What have you seen from him as he's kind of maybe sitting on the sideline and watching things for most of last year into now this his actual final year for you guys?
Yes. You know, he's like really smart. Like you could move Romello everywhere and he could play. He's that smart. So here's what happens to him, and I'll just be flat out honest because they know because I told them. Is a lot of times when you like, okay, guys, you guys are the guys now. We need you this and that. They start slow because they have this I've arrived moment. And after the first two practices, I pulled both of them in. And I went, you're not acting like you've arrived. Does that make sense? Like you're not doing it, and you never have arrived, right? And I told him the story about Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter, they said, you know, you played for whatever, how many years. What made you great? He basically said, I come to the stadium every day scared to death I'm going to get beat out. What do you mean Derek Jeter is going to get beat out? No, but that's something you have to bring to the table every day, right? Okay, and then I talked to those guys about that. Let's like get here like you're fighting for your life every day for a starting job, even though you know you're the best right now because of competition. You got to fight that fight of laziness of like, there's nobody really behind me that can push me. No, that's not true, right? So after the first 2 days, we had that moment, and they have done really well the last 2 days. So.
Are you anticipating? I know you have some guys coming in the summer, but are you anticipating getting any more receivers out of the transfer portal?
It's a possibility. You know, we're going to make that decision as the portal opens up. It's always a possibility. We do have Link Rhodes, who signed with us coming in, who I'm very excited about. And so been in contact with him every day. He's just chomping at the bit to get here.
Losing as much experience as you did, obviously you're relying on either guys coming up from reserve roles last year or your newcomers. Will that limit the amount that you ask guys to fill multiple receiver positions? Will you lock guys in at one spot only, or will you still move guys around?
Yeah, it's very hard to move the young guys around, right? So right now, you know, you're just thinking you can't move. We can't be quite as multiple. Like obviously, when you have a guy like, I'll say this, Roderick Daniels may be the best pound for pound football player I've ever coached because he could do everything. The guy was incredibly smart. And so we could be so multiple and we could do high level things with our offense, right? So until we get those guys on that level, we may not, you know, be able to do that right now. So we'll see as we go. But you know, those guys have got to. If we're going to move those older guys around, then they're going to have to pick it up.
Do you see anyone in this group who shows some attributes that could eventually evolve into that sort of Swiss Army knife kind of player like Daniels?
Not out of my room. McFalls. I love that dude. He's smart, coachable. I coach him on punt return, so I watch him as he pays attention. It's very important to me. If I say something one time and look a kid in the eye, if he tries to do it immediately, I go, that guy right there is going to become a good football player. But if it takes me 9 times to get them to do that, I'm like, man, this is, yeah, you know, it's going to take a while. But I watch him, and I've seen him because he played receiver in high school, and he plays running back, and he's smart, and he's very coachable. I could see him kind of doing a little bit of slot, running back, and all that stuff, yes. Kind of like what Brashard did for us a little bit. So, yeah. Good?
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.